There's a river flowing from the throne of God. Drink from the water right now. Oh, there's a river flowing from the throne of God. Drink from the water right now. It's a river of healing.
Hi, my name is Brenda, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm a part of a support group for women out of Northern Nevada that is called Exquisite. We founded it in 2012, and what we do is we bring hope, courage, and a voice for women. A lot of women that we reach are out in the sex industry, particularly in the brothels of Mound House and in Lyon County. We've been able to go in and visit with them, bring them gifts in the past, just show them unconditional love right where they are. The reason I began to work with women in the sex industry is I was sitting in my hair salon one day, and I saw a woman who was sitting there with major bald spots in her hair, and it really concerned me and actually shocked me. I asked my hairdresser what was going on, and she said that she had them, her hair was ripped out clear to the roots by a client during an episode in the sex industry out in the brothel. That was so shocking to me, and they were repairing her hair so that she could go back out and work. And there was a driver there ready as soon as her hair was done to take her back out. When I saw that, I realized that violence actually is a part of what happens out in the brothel, and it just compelled me to want to do something. They're in our neighborhood. They're in our backyard. I live in Carson City. And so I went and learned about what other women do to work in sex industry outreaches for support to women so that they're not felt like they're alone. And so in 2012, we began taking gifts out to the girls, and it was such a rewarding experience to be able to go out and just give them gifts and to show them love. We would hug them and bring them home-baked goods that they could enjoy as a taste of home and just know that they're loved. That began to build relationships with women, and some of them I still have to this day. There are a lot of women who have left that I've been able to help just walk alongside as they begin a new journey outside the brothels. And when I hear their stories, they're very compelling. These are beautiful, beautiful daughters who've just been caught in a situation where they had no other choice. And I know that's kind of a confusing statement. A lot of people say they have a choice out there. But when you go out there and you have no other means to support yourself, and you find that you can make a living, you begin to think that's an option. But after you're there for a while, you do become trapped. The trapped is in financially. Every day you're charged room and board. Every week you are charged a doctor visit. And if you don't have a lot of clients, you start racking up debt. And if you don't pay off your debt, that just continues to be a weight on your shoulders. So that's number one, how you can be trapped out there. And it's really difficult to get out from under. There's also a lot of times when you're put in situations where you may not have wanted the choice that was made to be purchased, but you had to do it anyway. And that's just so demeaning at times. I think back to many, many years ago in our country where there were slaves. There were slaves that came and they stood in a line, and people purchased them for using for their crops or for their homes. And Abraham Lincoln abolished that, years and years and years ago. And a lot of people today think that we don't have slavery, but we do. For example, out in the brothel, the girls, when there's a lineup, which a caller comes, a client comes, and they ring the bell, the girls are immediately called and told to run to a lineup. And a lineup will consist of girls lining side by side with their hands behind their back, a lot like slaves were back in Abraham Lincoln's days. And then they're looked up one side and down the other, and one of them is purchased, and is purchased for exploitation of their bodies. I am not okay with that. I just feel like we have so much more to offer our society than to be trapped by someone being sold for sexual favors.
Most of us today have heard stories of the millions of women and children forced into prostitution through human trafficking. We're aware and we're grieved. But what about those women in prostitution who weren't trafficked? Did those women willfully choose prostitution? And are they as empowered, independent, and sexually liberated as many would have us believe? What we've come to see through years of research and thousands of conversations with prostituted women across the world is a very different picture of prostitution. And the truth of this picture is that prostitution can be more accurately described as the choice of those with the fewest choices. See, nearly without fail, women enter prostitution from a position of vulnerability. Many women, quote unquote, choose prostitution as underage children, some as young as 12. This so-called choice is often heavily influenced by prior sexual abuse. It is influenced by the unrelenting messages from the media, pop culture, and society that communicate that a woman's primary value is her sex appeal. Many prostituted women and children come from families broken by poverty, addiction, and mental illness. Many are homeless, orphaned, refugees, or suffer some form of social disadvantage. One formerly prostituted woman wrote about the sentiment of choosing prostitution. She said, "When I think about my choices, they were simply these: have men on and inside you, or continue to suffer homelessness and hunger. Take your pick, make your choice." Prostitution preys upon the most vulnerable in our society, coercing individuals through life circumstances to trade sex for the hope of a better life, or even to simply survive. If this is the truth of prostitution, then prostitution is not a choice. If we truly care about the dignity, safety, and empowerment of women and children, then we must fight for a world without prostitution. We must fight for a world where our most vulnerable are offered real choices. And we're asking you to choose this fight.
In my experience and doing some research, a lot of women are exposed as a young age, between 3 and 5, to pornography by family members, and then between 5 and 8, they begin to become molested, often by family members or people that they trust. When you are exposed to such horror at a young age, you begin to become conditioned. And you begin to say, if this is going to be taken from me, I'm going to take ownership of it. So a lot of women end up in either being coerced by a pimp and sold into slavery of prostitution, or they begin to take ownership themselves, and they hear of a place in Mound House where they can go and it'll be legal and everything will be safe for them there. And so they go out there as a probably initial choice, but very immediately begin to feel the entrapment of the finances and what happens out there violently. So as a prostitution as a choice, it's not. It's a conditioned response to what's happened to them over years and years and years of abuse and molestation. And that's a statistic that I hear, or a story, you might say, from every woman I've ever talked to personally. They say, well, when I was young, this happened to me. And I decided to take ownership of my body. If they were going to take from me, I was going to take ownership of my body. So we have to ask ourselves as a society why we're letting that happen. Why is that something that we're allowing here in our state, in our Lyon County here in northern Nevada? Why is that something that we're okay with? Why is it that law enforcement don't have the tools that they need to begin to help us in saving these girls? As I have talked with a lot of them, it appears to me that they're conditioned beyond their own ability to make their right decisions. And so many of them end up with PTSD. A lot of them end up having to have a lot of counseling, and we're here to do that. We're here to help with that. A lot of people feel that it's safer to work in the brothel than it is out on the street as a street prostitute. I don't believe violence in any way is okay. It's not safer out in the brothel. It's just different. It's like comparing apples to oranges. And why do we have to have a choice of either or? Women should not be exploited for someone else's pleasure. A woman or a child or even young boys should not be purchased for someone else's sexual favors. And at any location, it's not safe. When women are purchased for sex out in the brothel, they are chosen by a person that desires to have sex with them. They negotiate and consent a certain menu item, so to speak. And if that doesn't go the way the woman has consented to, it still goes for however the man would like to complete the transaction. There's violence that's involved. There's oftentimes requirements are that you wear condoms. There's so many times when men rip condoms off and women are not safe from disease because that happens to them on a regular basis. I've had the privilege over the last few years to make some very good friendships with the women that work out in the brothels. There's a few stories I'd love to share with you, just to let you know how beautiful they are and how much they are a daughter from someone's home and someone's family. One girl in particular I remember, we brought out some Valentine gifts and some Valentine homemade cookies, and the girls were so excited. They love home-baked goods because that's just something from home that they just don't get very often. I looked out and I saw coming across the parlor a girl in a wheelchair, and I was like very struck by how sad that was to me. She was rolling across over to where we were, and I noticed that there's no way that she could ever walk. Her feet were very disfigured and turned in, and she would not have had the ability to even stand out of her wheelchair. So seeing that, I wanted her to make sure she got a gift. And when I reached up to get the plate of cookies and her gift, and I knelt down by her wheelchair, and I handed her the plate of cookies, I realized that her hands were also deformed. She had to take her two wrists together to actually pick up a cookie and to receive her gift. That broke my heart. And I believe that she was actually very popular by some people wanting to purchase her more for exploitation. And she had to leave and go back to her room because she had a client. Broke my heart. There's another girl that called me at 3 o'clock in the morning. She was calling in tears because she had just been raped. And I know a lot of people are confused by how can you be raped in a brothel. Well, when you are purchasing a woman for your own pleasure, you decide what you would like to pay for. This John decided to go beyond what he had paid for and what she had consented. And in the process, he began to hurt her very violently. She was screaming for help. She was calling out to anyone that could hear. And he kept pulling her away from the panic button. And you should consider even that right there. Why is there a panic button in a room? A panic button is to save them from violence. And he would pull her away from that. So she had no help, no one to help her. No one came to rescue her. Finally, someone did hear her, and they called the madam. And the madam looked at the man and then looked at the girl laying there, obviously very hurt. And she looked at him and she goes, "I'm really sorry that this happened to you, that your experience was not a positive one." And she said, "You may have any girl in the house on us, and you may do whatever you'd like." And as the man turned, he laughed in her face and walked out of the room, and she was left all alone, hurt. That is so not okay with me. But we've helped her. She's doing better, and she's out of the brothel today.
Pro-prostitution says that it's the oldest profession, that it always has been, and therefore it always should be. We say it's the oldest oppression. We say that it always has been, but we say that it no longer should be. Pro-prostitution says that child prostitution is harmful and bad, but adult is okay and it's empowering. Abolition says that child prostitution is bad, but we know that many, if not most, women in prostitution started out as children. So women in prostitution are children who were lucky enough to live long enough to become women in prostitution. They're the same people at different points in their life. Pro-prostitution says that it's a choice. We say it's the choice of people who have the fewest choices or no choices at all.
A prostitute out in the Lyon County brothels are considered to be independent contractors. An independent contractor is someone who has their own business and someone who goes to the sheriff and they get a working card so they can work out in the brothels. Independent contractor is really a term that is used lightly. That would indicate that you are in control of what happens to you and your money on a daily basis. Women are not given free rein to do whatever they want as an independent contractor. First of all, anytime anyone comes and purchases you for sex, half of the money that you earn goes to the house. So you lose half of your money. You do pay room and board, and you do pay the doctor. So those are all requirements that are coming out before you even get a dime. As an independent contractor, you really are not in control of what happens to you on a daily basis. When a caller comes, the bell rings. And when the bell rings, you are immediately required to come and line up along with everyone else in your house. You are then looked up one side and down the other. You say your name, but you are not allowed to have any eye contact or personal contact with this person, and they are not allowed to touch you as well until you are selected. You're looked up one side and down the other and all the way down the line until one person is chosen, one woman is chosen, which is often like looking up at a piece of meat, up one side and down the other. You're made to feel very demeaned. And then what happens if you're not chosen? You're rejected. You feel like you're not good enough for that person, or that just wasn't what they were looking for. That also causes a lot of competition, perhaps some animosity between the girls for competing for the dollar, because you are required to have a certain amount of income for the house, not necessarily for you, but for the house. So that causes a lot of rejection issues, a lot of friction in the house. And I remember being out there one time and looking as my friends had to line up. It broke my heart because I had just been sitting there having a cupcake with them, and I was sitting on the couch when they had to go to a lineup. And I remember looking at their faces, and I could see in their eyes, one of them you could see so distinctly, please pick me, I need the money. But if you look deeper in her eyes, you could say, please don't pick me. I was actually very shocked to find out this last, probably within this last year, that there's a lot of pimps that bring girls to the brothel to work because they are confined and assured of someone coming in for purchase. And that opened up a whole new dynamic for me in just thinking about, so they were on the street, but now you can bring them into a brothel situation, and they're going to have a sure fit for money, which that doesn't always happen either. And one particular girl that I know had a pimp, and so you make half of what you earn, and then you have all your expenses. So perhaps you might take home 75% of your money is taken, so you might take home 25%. However, if you have a pimp, that goes right to him. And if you're not bringing enough money to the pimp, you get beat up. And she told me I would get beat up, and then he'd go get back in there and earn more money.
What is prostitution? Many people say it's the world's oldest profession, that it's a job just like any other job. But when you look at the real lives and real experiences of those in prostitution, it's clear that it's unlike any other job. 98% of those bought in prostitution are women. 99% of the buyers are men. These numbers reveal that at its very core, prostitution is a system of gender inequality. It's a system where women exist to fulfill the sexual desires of men. She is seen as a product to be bought, used, and discarded. Within this system of inequality, women in prostitution routinely endure violent, exploitative, and dehumanizing acts at the hands of sex buyers and pimps that are incomparable to any other profession. Our society has created laws against workplace sexual harassment, but in prostitution, the job is sexual harassment. One survivor said, "As a prostitute, you do not get to frame the boundaries of your sexual experience." The largest study ever conducted on prostitution revealed that 63% of women in prostitution experience rape, and 71% experienced multiple forms of physical violence. Yet another study revealed the types of violence women in prostitution experience, which included being kicked, punched, robbed, strangled, kidnapped, burnt with cigarettes, slashed with razor blades, and urinated on. As a result, the majority of women studied in prostitution met the criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder on the same level as combat victims and torture victims. The mortality rate of women in prostitution is 200 times higher than the general population of women. These are not job hazards. These are statistical probabilities that women in prostitution will be sexually and physically assaulted and will suffer from severe mental and emotional trauma. This is not a job. It is a violation of human rights. It is a system of violence, exploitation, and inequality against women, and it must be stopped. Join the movement to end the business of exploitation.
A lot of you might think that I am just here today to talk about something that I don't know personally. These women have become friends of mine, and so I'm advocating for them. A lot of them don't have a voice because if they speak up for how they really feel, if they speak up for how they've been treated, there's fear of retribution, and it's a real fear, and I see it in their eyes. So it's really important for me to share with you that this is a very personal journey for me, not because it's just about prostitution, but it's because it's about a girl and a woman that I know personally. And I want to tell them that there's people out there that love them and that they are not alone and that we will stand with them. We will give them the opportunity to have their dreams met. We will give them job skills. And so Lyon County, the people that live out in Lyon County, I'm speaking to you today. I'm speaking to you in Fernley and in Urington and Silver Sage and Stagecoach and Dayton. I'm just asking you to consider what it would be like for us to not allow what's been happening for so many years, to not allow the abuses of prostitution any longer. I think we're better than this. I think that we have become a society that does not need to have this as a part of who we represent in the state of Nevada. Outside of in the United States, Nevada is known for, oh, you're the ones with prostitution. Could we be known for something better? It's not that far out of our reach. We can do this. We can say that we no longer want to allow this to be part of our neighborhoods, that we want to have our neighborhoods improve with more jobs and with more opportunities for people without exploitation. So I'm asking you to consider what this means for you in your neighborhood. I believe that we are better than this and that we do not need to have legal prostitution any longer. For the first time in your history, since the early 1970s, you have the opportunity to vote. It's never been your opportunity before. It's always been decided by the county commissioners. But you have the opportunity to change history. You have the opportunity to say, yes, we no longer want to have prostitution as a part of our neighborhood. Yes, we no longer want prostitution to affect our children. Yes, we don't want someone standing outside of our high school enticing them to come and work at their brothel. Yes, on LC1 will change our history, and it will change your neighborhood, and it will change who we are known as Nevadans. I want to give you the opportunity to know that you can still be a part. If you don't live in Lyon County and you want to be a part of changing history, you still can, because we have an opportunity for you to join us, because together we're better. So if you go to yesonlc1.com, there's a place for you to donate. And as we donate, that just gives us more opportunity to get the word out that we are not going to put up with prostitution in our county, in our state, that we're better than this. You're a Nevadan, you're battle-born, and we just encourage you to join this, this force that we can change history. I just want to thank you for the opportunity, and I thank Faith Alive for this opportunity to let us share what's very close to our heart and our passion. We want everyone to become aware of what's out in Lyon County and in your surrounding neighborhoods. And so we appreciate the opportunity, and I hope that you'll take a few moments to consider what we've talked about today, and over the next few days that you'll really consider how you can be a part of being a history maker here in Nevada. My name's Brenda, and I am with Exquisite. It's a nonprofit that supports women, giving them hope, courage, and a voice. And I just thank you for this opportunity.
You know, years ago when I started out in this field, I didn't understand this stuff. I had never thought, more than 5 minutes about prostitution and if it was exploitation. I would have thought I was being so, progressive if I used a term like sex work. I would have thought I was being sophisticated and intellectual. But having, spent years learning and talking to people and meeting people who've been exploited, looking into the eyes of women prostituting, seeing victims in West Africa, going through Tijuana and looking at the red light district. Once you have those experiences, it's pretty hard to come away from it and say, wow, this is just some rosy occupation.
Donate today at yesonlc1.com and help us fight back against the pimps and sex traffickers that coerce and exploit the most vulnerable people in our society. That's yesonlc1.com to support the fight against sex trafficking and prostitution in Nevada.
Beside the river.
Thank you for watching Demonstrations of Faith, a ministry outreach of Faith Alive Christian Center in Reno, Nevada. If you don't have a home church, we invite you to come and connect with us. We have ministry for the entire family on Sundays at 9 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. and Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Our Connect Youth Ministry meets on Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights. Childcare is available for all services. Our location is 120 Hubbard Way, half block east of the Peppermill in Reno. You can find us online at faithalive.net or by searching for Faith Alive at all social media outlets. Thanks for watching, and join us next week for Demonstrations of Faith.
And it's flowing to me.